Hey everybody, it's Cathy Alessandra, your Yes I Can coach, and we are here for another episode of Coffee Talk with Cathy. And yes, this morning it is coffee as I'm trying to warm up and bring the sunshine out. I am super excited today to be interviewing a longtime friend, Candy Messer. We have been friends for a long time. We've been business associates. We've been in masterminds together. It's got to go back, I don't know, 20 years or something like that. Welcome, Candy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for the invitation. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to talk for a minute or two about some of that subject that gets people a little uncomfortable at times. We're going to talk about money. Money. So she is the owner of Affordable Bookkeeping and Payroll. She also writes a column for the Yes I Can Living magazine online site. So be sure to check out her articles over there. I'm going to have her introduce herself in just a minute, give you a little more details. But sometimes the subject of money and budgets and looking at your P&L, and especially these days, people are worried about what the markets are doing and where I should be investing and what I shouldn't be, all of that, right? And so here's the thing. When you look at your numbers, you can become empowered, as far as I'm concerned, in my humble opinion, right? If we know our numbers, we're looking at our numbers, we can make empowered choices and decisions about what we're doing with our money, how we're spending it, how we're investing it, what we're cutting, what we're not, and what we need to look at. So that's why I think this is such an important topic for all of us, entrepreneurs, small business owners, and even if you're watching and you're not. So Candy, can you share a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Well, I'm Candy, president of Affordable Bookkeeping and Payroll Services. I say I'm a profitability and growth advisor, and I energize the overwhelmed entrepreneur by removing the burden of their bookkeeping, payroll, sales tax, 1099s, like the compliance stuff that people usually hate, right? And they don't want to deal with government agencies. That's what we do. We step in and we help with that. And then, of course, if someone really wants to take a deep dive into their business and find out, what is going on and what types of things maybe do they need to change, then we can work with them and really look at their numbers. Like you said, really review the financials, what can be changed to make things better.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And I love your introduction too. It's all about the profitability advisor, right? I mean, that's an important piece. There's so many ways of looking at this. Bookkeeping isn't just bookkeeping per se. Yes, you got to keep the books up, but I think it's important for us to be looking where we are spending our money and what's coming in and what's going out. So talk to me a little bit about, these days, there seems to be a lot of fear out there around, what might happen and where the economy is going. And when we look at our business, sometimes we think, well, I need to cut this or I need to stop that. And so what would you say are some of the things we need to be looking at more closely, maybe some of the things that we shouldn't be cutting? Just what are your thoughts as you're talking to business owners right now with that?
Sure. I think really what you need to do is start with analyzing the expenses that you have. A lot of times people will sign up for something and they're not paying attention. They forget they signed up for something and there's these monthly deductions out of the account, for something that they haven't maybe even used in the last 6 months or something. So what are the things that you're paying for you no longer need? There might be other software out there too that maybe does multiple things that you're paying different vendors for. So is there something that you can, put into one and maybe save some money there and, streamline things a little bit? So those are some of the things that I, talk about. And then of course, are you making your estimated tax payments? I know people don't want to think about that, but if you're paying them as you should throughout the year, obviously those amounts are smaller too, instead of having a bigger amount later on where maybe you don't even have the cash at that point, and then you end up with penalties and interest. And that's even worse, right, in terms of your cash flow. So putting money aside into an account until those are due. Same thing with sales tax. If you're collecting sales tax from your clients and you have to remit that maybe on a quarterly basis, put that into a different account so you don't see it in the bank account thinking you have more cash available than you really do, because that's what happens a lot of times. Those due dates come up and all of a sudden I don't have money to pay. Now what am I going to do? So right. I think those are a couple of the things that are really important to focus on.
That's a big one. Those estimated tax payments. I think, as entrepreneurs, a lot of times small business owners, so maybe solo entrepreneurs, forget about that and don't necessarily put things in, and it's almost like making a payment into a different bank account, right? So that you're not seeing it and so that it's adding up, but then it's there when you actually need to send it off to state and federal and all that. And even this idea of looking at things with subscriptions, when I was first, it kind of started out with all the CRM and accepting credit cards and doing all that, right? I mean, I was using Salesforce, I was using Authorize.net, I was using all Constant Contact, I was using all these different things, right? That all cost me money. And there's so many systems now at very reasonable prices that you can pull all of that together. So that's a great recommendation. Really, definitely taking a look at that. I think that's important.
Well, and technology changes frequently. There's new people coming out on the market. And so it sometimes is where we stay in what we have just because it's easier than making that change, but then the cost could be significantly more. So there might be another one that's newer. Of course, making sure you're not going in where it's too soon, maybe where there's a problem, right? And it's not going to actually have the solution that you need. But finding those things that are going to be effective for your needs too, and not buying more than you need. Because sometimes too, we see like the bells and whistles and we're like, oh, that's awesome. If I sign up for this, I can, only pay this much and it will do all these things, but then maybe you don't use all those things. So if you would have just gone with like a lower level, you'd have what you need, a lower cost, right?
Right. Funny how that works, right? What are your thoughts on budgets and that kind of thing? I know when just before we got on here to record, we were talking about the whole profit first thing with and I'm
Mike Michalowicz.
Thank you very much. I was like, who is that? What are your thoughts on budget and where money should be going, and this whole idea of profit first? And maybe share a little bit about what that is.
Sure. So I will say though too, right now I'm not a Profit First certified person yet. You have to actually go through to be able to use that title that you're a Profit First, counselor, whatever terms you want to use.
So,
but I do profit. Yeah, I do Profit First myself as well too, and I've been doing that for a couple of years. And the concept really is you do have different accounts for different things. So an operating expense account, your money goes into, a specific account that you then disperse to whichever accounts that you need. So for me, I actually have a few more than he recommends, but I do have one specifically, as I mentioned earlier, liabilities that I put all the taxes that I'm going to have to pay. And so I'm allocating twice a month into that account. So what am I thinking I'm going to be needing over, this period of time? And I have a percentage that I put in twice a month so that when that estimated tax payment comes due, the money's already there. I also have one for annual things that I'm paying for. So obviously my insurance, I don't want to pay, for those who know me, I want to make sure that I pay the least amount as possible. So I don't want to pay those extra service fees for having multiple payments in the year for insurance. So what I will do is pay the whole thing up front, but I'm accumulating those dollars into an account. So when that bill comes, I've got the money saved, right? And so that will be for lots of different things, insurance. I also had an account where I was putting the money away because I knew I was going to have a whole new computer system soon. I'm moving my office from California to where I am now, and I was going to invest in new computers. So probably about 8 months ago, I actually talked to my IT person and said how much, and then started putting that money away so that when the payment came, due to make that purchase, I already had it saved, right? So those are kinds of things. There's what do you know that's going to be happening in your business, even if it's not happening at this moment, that you can be saving for, so then you don't end up into a bind, right? And then having savings, we all know when COVID hit, a lot of people really struggled because they were not able to have that cash available. So I would say too, put money away into savings so that if something were to happen, you've got cash available. You can still pay payroll if you've got employees, or you could pay those, again, estimated tax payments, or you could buy supplies still. You've got the things that you need because you've already saved some money and you're not struggling at the last minute to try to get credit or anything like that.
Right. So tell me, is there one common mistake that you see a lot of us entrepreneurs make, other than not necessarily putting stuff away and having this big old tax bill? Is there anything else that you see as a big common mistake that we miss or forget about, or, and then you're helping us pick up the pieces?
Unfortunately, there are times that people have forgotten they need to do their business license. It depends on where you are, but many times it's an annual business license. If you don't file that on time, there's penalties and interest, doing calculations incorrectly. So again, if you're doing sales tax as an example, you're supposed to collect based on the district that is being sold into. So if you're an online seller and you've got people in different counties, in different states, depending on what your filing requirements are, those are different rates for those different areas. So filing that on time, collecting it, according to the jurisdictions, like those are typical mistakes that people make. And they don't realize they're making the mistake until the government basically sends a notice that says, you owe this, and there's penalties and interest because you didn't do it on time, and so that really eats into the cash that you have, right? Because now usually penalties are at least 10%, and then interest accrues from the day that money was due. And so if they take a while to get to you, which the IRS is behind, it might take them 8, 9, 10 months, a year to say, you didn't pay this on time, but they're going to charge you interest back to the day that it was due. So it's having all of that information, knowing what you're needing to be doing. And I say, put it on a calendar, whether it's on your phone that you're using it. Some people still like paper calendars, but have something that reminds you that this is due, and set that reminder, a couple weeks before the final due date, because we all know things get, crazy. We get busy sometimes, and you don't always get to things when you think you will. So set that a little bit early so you have time to get them done.
That's I'm gonna tell a tale on myself. For before I actually had bookkeeping help years ago, when I've been in business now for, oh my gosh, almost 30 years. I had missed some LLC taxes. I was an LLC, and there's the $800 LLC tax that's due every year. And there's a form that goes with that, right, Candy? And those that had gotten missed. And I want to say it was 5 years later. I mean, it wasn't like within a year. I mean, there was a definite period of time. And unfortunately, I missed that and had to pay the penalties and get things re-go. And it's all set now. So that's a good one. Mark a calendar, even schedule it in advance, whatever it is. Don't forget those important things. So Candy, you and I have known each other a long time. We've been in masterminds together. We've shared a business coach years ago. Can you share, because you've taken your business and you have really grown, and just by leaps and bounds over the last 10, 15 years. Where do you find your inspiration?
So on the business side of things, right, I really love when customers breathe that sigh of relief, right? Like I have a client who will call me and say, I have this question, or I need this filed. And he has us literally do everything for him. He's located in 2 states. So we do everything: payroll, sales tax, 1099s, business license, you name it. But I remember one time he called, he had a question. And when I answered him, he said, you know what, every time I call you, I'm worried about something, but then you give me the answer and I breathe a sigh of relief, right? I think that's what inspires me in terms of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And also just educating the entrepreneur. I have my podcast, of course, which you've been a guest on before too. And my passion around that is getting experts to share their tips and tricks and expertise so that the listener can take what will apply to them and have a more successful business, right? There's too many businesses that start and fail, and I want to see them succeed. So I think that's, on the business side, kind of my inspiration. Of course, on the personal side, family. I'm now a grandma, right? I have 2 grandsons, and I have a 3rd one who's going to be born in June. So that to me is something that I just love. I'm so happy I get to experience watching them grow and being close to them. So I would say that's for sure my personal inspiration.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. So you mentioned your podcast. Can you share with our viewers today, where can they find you? If they need help, if they need bookkeeping, if they want to listen to your podcast, where would they go to connect with you?
Sure. So the podcast is on video through YouTube, plus many podcast channels. So iHeartRadio or Spotify, iTunes, Google, all of that. My website is abandp.com. And you could also find me on LinkedIn too. I'm active on LinkedIn. That's probably one of the best places to find me now for business to business connections. So you could connect with me there too. I'd love to, get to know you a little bit better as well. If you want to, touch base, that would be great.
Awesome. Wonderful. All right. So our final question together is what I ask all of my guests: what makes you a yes, I can woman?
Well, for those who know me, they'd probably be surprised that I'm doing a lot of things that I'm doing now because I'm actually a shy introvert, right? And so having a podcast was never on my to-do list, right? And probably writing books, although that's kind of private in terms of when you're writing it, it's putting your message out there to the world. So I've actually been part of a few different books, one that I'd done with you many years ago as well. And so I think just doing things that I never thought I would do, like let alone have video blogs or, all of that. I thought people aren't going to want to read this or hear this because a lot of people don't like the finance. They don't necessarily even want to hear about it, right? Because it's not something they enjoy. But I've had people after I've put this out there say, thank you so much. This has been really helpful. And so then I realized it was worth getting out of my comfort zone to put out what I'm doing and to really just share the message to really help entrepreneurs succeed.
Yeah, I love it. And you are a yes, I can woman. Everything I've seen and experienced with you. I mean, you've done my payroll years ago when I had staff and all that. And anyway, it's been great to stay connected and having you here in Los Angeles recently at the Yes, I Can experience and being on the stage together was awesome. So, grateful for you and sharing all of this with our listeners today and our viewers. So, all right, Candy, thank you so much. I will put in the notes here where you can find her with her website. And again, you can click on her stuff in the various channels where we're streaming live on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. And we are here live every Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. So be sure to join us. We've got some amazing people that we are interviewing who are sharing their story, who are sharing tips for you to grow as a business owner, and who are sharing their inspiration with you. So we will be back next Thursday with another episode of Coffee Talk with Cathy. Until then, I hope you have a fabulous day. And